There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports. The Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin?
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris faced off in the first and potentially only presidential debate last night. The debate, by all accounts, was fairly boring, and I don't think we'll see any swift exits like we did following Joe Biden's last presidential debate. But the real story of the night was not how nervous Kamala Harris was or whether she succeeded at rattling Trump, but instead, the story is one about the moderators, who inserted themselves at every opportunity to position themselves against Donald Trump, but failed to fact-check Kamala a single time. In other words, the debate was a massive failure because the journalists responsible broke the cardinal rule surrounding our profession when they made the story about themselves. Joining me today to discuss is Detroit radio host Justin Barclay. I'm Rachel Parker, and you're watching Rachel and the Republic. Well, Justin, thank you so much for being here today. We have a lot of material to cover, so I'm just going to hop in right off the bat. What the heck was that last night? That was something that was hard to watch.
But you're telling me. I tweeted last night and posted on X. I'm like, I do this for a living. I'm supposed to look at this stuff. And like half an hour through, I was done. I didn't want to watch anymore. And I don't know, it was fatiguing. So I'll tell you this. A lot of talk this morning, and I'm seeing a lot on my social media, and I think there are people that are feeling, because they understand the weight of the scenario, the weight of the situation, with the moment, what we're in right now. And I'm seeing a lot of folks and a lot of negative kind of responses just saying, boy, Trump, he lost major opportunities last night, feeling like Kamala won and whatnot. But I'm here to tell you, I don't think that if you want to pick a winner, it was probably the moderators, maybe. But I don't think anyone won. In fact, I think the American people lost, and really because, let's be honest, like, people are coming into this thing. If you are on the left, you think Kamala won. She just gave it to him, and she stood there and they were hoping that Biden would have done that the first time around, and yet he didn't, wasn't able to, barely able to stand there. Then if you're on the right, you think, Trump did well, or you think maybe he could have done better, but it's not going to change anything. It will not change the way you vote. What we're really looking at is the people in the middle right now, and the undecideds, if there is such a thing, or the people that haven't been paying attention and they're just turning everything on now. They're getting past the summer. They get the kids back to school. And now I got to pay attention to this election. And those are the people who walked away even more frustrated than you and I, because they didn't see any substance, particularly from Kamala Harris. What they did see was a lot of blaming Trump for everything. But they didn't get their questions answered. And I saw that time and time again. I don't know if you saw these clips from panels like CBS and CNN, and Dr. Phil, of all people, had panelists of people that they did these debate watch shows and recaps with. And there was one woman, Dr. Phil said, I wanted to like Kamala Harris, but she didn't tell me anything. And the bottom line is, his closing argument, if anybody watches anything from the debate, you've had 3.5 years to do this. You say you have plans. Why aren't you doing these things now? That, to me, was the biggest moment of the night. There wasn't anything else that just really, I think, make or break anyone anyway. Although I will say, I said a moderators one earlier, but I think, I really think we're at a moment now where people are starting to see through this kind of thing. And ABC did more damage to their credibility last night
Yeah, that
that
was sort of what
everyone-
I was wondering, if you think the American people are really awakening to the fact that there is so much media bias. And I mean, that was, I think, the frustrating part of that debate last night was, yes, there wasn't a lot of substance. We weren't getting answers, as you mentioned, but just watching the moderators' bias on full display, like, it was stomach churning. It was very difficult to sit through that from my
Yeah.
point of view. But you're saying you think people are waking up, and you think that ABC actually did themselves and ultimately did Kamala a disservice by being so blatantly
Yeah,
biased last night.
because it was all about get Trump. If they would have actually given her some time to lay groundwork, and she has to be willing to do this too, about her policies and how they're actually going to make things better for people. And that doesn't just even has to be real, because none of it's real anyway for her. But like, none of it has to be real, but that's what people were looking for. Instead, they got all this fact check. Well, apparently you said this, but that just, that. I mean, fact checking someone with your opinion is crazy. And the biggest part of all of the craziness with the moderators, when David Muir interrupts President Trump when he's speaking about the failed assassination attempt. And I know that you have personal connection to this too, but why wouldn't they allow him to at least say that? Well, people pick up on this. Wait a minute. What he said, I basically said I took a bullet for, and they're not even allowing him to talk. We got to move on. We got to move on. We got to move on to what? To talk about racism or talk about January 6th? People don't care about that. They can't feed their families right now. This is what the average person cares about. All this other made up stuff. I'm telling you, I think the average person is more frustrated, throwing their hands up in the air with all of this stuff. They're walking away. And I don't know. I think they did vast damage to Kamala Harris. And I'll back this up with some polling. The latest polling we've seen Nate Silver come out with the polls that indicate there's literally no chance that she's going to be able to win. Now, that was last week. We'll see what happens after this debate, although I don't think it's going to move much. The real issue was that people don't know Kamala. They know who Trump is. Large numbers of people know who he is. More importantly, the people that were interviewed after the debate, they would say things like, I saw several of them say, well, we know what his policies are. We know how things were under him, and they were better. We didn't even get to hear what she wants to say. But again, they know who he is. They don't even know, not only do they not know who she is or have any idea of who she is, but they don't even know. Don Lemon from CNN went out there interviewing people on the street about a week or two back, and he was flabbergasted, former CNN anchor, flabbergasted, because people didn't even know her name or recognize her when he talked to her on the street. So I think you had the opportunity for her to make a splash, and I think she did very little of that last night.
So I want to get into some of the debate moderators, if we can even call them that, their performance last night. And as I mentioned to my audience, it's probably going to leave you with a bit of a sickening sense just to see exactly the unfairness that went on. So I thought we could just start with something a little more lighthearted. This clip from the beginning of the debate, the moderators introduce Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. They walk on stage, and just go and look what Kamala Harris was. This was really making the rounds, one of the best moments of the night. Take a look.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
So, Justin, you were talking about how people don't really know who she is on the streets. It seems funny that she would start off this debate as a presidential candidate for one of the two major parties in America by introducing herself to her opponent. I suspect that her advisors had told her this was a good thing to do, to try to rattle Trump and to get in his head early on. It came across to me as looking very beta. What was your take on this?
Same. This is the thing about these debates or these moments that people don't take, and I think the strategists don't get this either. They're thinking that they're going to be very crafty and have this moment where she goes over and she shakes his hand and she's not afraid. Now, you can't see it now because it's not on the screen, but if you go back and watch later, you'll see there's a couple of things that stand out. Number one, she's very short, and short next to him. They were concerned about, liberals were coming out talking about this earlier in this week about, oh, is she too short? And I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. I mean, things that I wouldn't even normally have thought about. They think about some of the most just like superficial things. Now that I think about it, though, I think subconsciously this is a bit of an issue. Her height next to him, and I don't know what would have stood out as much if they didn't stand right next to each other. Another thing I noticed in that clip, he stands there. Now this is this guy is the master of these like very sort of status creating moments where even when he's like meeting people that he likes and whatnot, but he'll shake their hand, but he'll shake it really good, and then he'll like pull them towards him. He has this ability that he does this thing, and he does it in just a brilliant way. It kind of shows you who's bosses kind of thing. And he did that last night. If you see him, he stands firm. She comes to him, that's another power dynamic. She has to come to him. He stands firm. And then if you could hear it, which I thought was really interesting, I think they were hoping there was going to be a moment where he would say something that would be bad, but he said, have fun. He tells her to have fun. Nice to meet you. Have fun. This is incredible because that's completely opposite and against what the media would project on him as the kind of evil guy that he is. And then lastly, what I noticed about that clip is that you could see they built her a special podium that was shorter than his so that she wouldn't look so short. And you can clearly see it in that picture, in that shot that they didn't give us a lot of during the debate of that two of them together. These little things, I don't know, I'm not body language expert or anything, but these little things, I wonder what the optics do and say to the American people. They can't even maybe necessarily know it or articulate it or even understand what's happening, but inside of our brains, I mean, there are obvious things that are happening at any moment in time, and maybe those things will play in to this conversation.
Yeah, you definitely offer a male perspective. You know, I wouldn't even necessarily have thought of that moment where Trump sort of stands there and she reaches towards him. But definitely that is the type of thing, I know this being married, that men observe and pick up on. So, you know, really interesting point there. Let's now dive into a little bit of the moderators. You all saw that clip at the beginning of basically all the times the moderators attempted to fact check, often incorrectly, Trump. As I mentioned already, they did not attempt to interrupt or debate or fact check Kamala Harris once, even though there was many opportunities for them to do so. This next clip that we're going to play is, in my opinion, probably one of the worst moments from the moderators, where they actually attempt to fact check Donald Trump's tone of voice. Take a look at this.
And for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
I mean, that to me is just incredible. Like, the media here in Canada, the mainstream media, don't get me wrong, they are brutal and they are biased, but this just brings a whole new level. He's arguing with Trump about his tone of voice and whether or not he was joking. I heard that clip when it came out, and it was very obvious to me at the time that he was obviously, we lost by a whisker. You know, he was sort of like, read between the lines, everyone. They stole the election from us. That was what he was saying. And this individual who covers David Muir, he covers American politics for a living. This is his job, and he couldn't pick up on that.
He doesn't want to pick up on it. I mean, look, these people that do these jobs, unfortunately, a lot of them in the media, I know this having been inside of the media, right? I can tell you, they're not all there for the reasons you think they might be there. A lot of them just like to see themselves on television. They maybe they were in theater as a kid, and then they just like being on the screen. And this is just like there's a reason why they say like DC is Hollywood for ugly people. Like this is kind of like the natural, and unfortunately, but that's how you end up with a lot of narcissistic people involved. And I don't know, like, your entire story, Rachel, but the little that I do know of you, I feel like it's probably pretty similar to the way I approach things. Is, I never really wanted to. I wouldn't have chosen politics. Like, that wasn't the number one thing that I wanted to talk about. I did radio ever since I was a kid in high school, but I ended up back in 2020 doing a talk radio show. I was working in Michigan, in West Michigan, and everything hit the fan. It went crazy, and I just found myself in this place where I'm just trying to give people news, trying to give them the facts of what's happening, and people are trying to make sense of it all. And I just wanted to tell people I noticed the news was lying. And ever since really he came down that golden escalator back in 2015, I noticed over and over and over again, they would report things that they would be off and they were missing things. But really, particularly in 2020, there were major issues with stories around what the numbers were, hospitalizations, how many cases. There would be good news and they wouldn't report it. And I thought to myself, this is strange. This is really off. So I kind of find myself in a place where I feel called to do this. I'm doing this because I don't think I really have a choice. And, we talked about kids earlier, and like, I've got 2 daughters, and one's 4, gotta be 4, the other one's gotta be 2. And I can't imagine the world they're going to grow up in. This is it. This election is it. There is no turning back. So I know a lot of these people are in it for different reasons. I'm sure Muir is one of those guys. I don't know, but I can't justify in my head how they get away with some of the things that they do and blatantly lying. How do you do this without having some sort of conscience? You know that you're wrong. You understand that. I will admit when I'm wrong, because here's the bottom line for me. The truth is more important than being right. And folks on the left, they always want to be right. They don't care. They don't care about the truth. Unfortunately, now more than ever, we're seeing that. And it's alive and well in our media. And they are constantly gaslighting us in this weird abusive relationship that we have with them. But you're right. That was one of the worst examples I've seen of it, for them to say, no, you didn't mean what you meant. What are you talking about? Yeah. How can you even pretend like you can get in somebody's head? It's insane. I hope people are waking up to it, though.
Very well said. And when we sort of talk about this phenomena of the media, people liking to see themselves on TV, maybe being in it for the wrong reasons, another really important moment in the debate is something that's been blowing up online. I'm sure you've seen it. What is going on in Springfield? Are Haitian immigrants actually eating the pets? Donald Trump brought it up in the debate last night. He says, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. And basically the situation here is that thousands of Haitian immigrants have been moved to a small, struggling town in Springfield. And now there are these reports coming out of people saying, their pets are being eaten, ducks from the pond, they're being decapitated, and these immigrants are actually eating the animals, which is, of course, not done in North America. We do not like to eat our pets. We raise specific animals to eat them. We do not eat cats and dogs here. It's just not done. Yeah. And so he actually got fact Trump for saying this by David Muir. He said, well, we spoke to the city manager and he said there's no credible reports of this. There's a lot of footage about this online. There's a lot of independent journalists going and talking to residents of Springfield, interviewing them, who are saying, yes, there's strange thing happening. Ducks are being decapitated. Is this a situation where journalists are just sort of speaking to a city bureaucrat who has his own interests in mind and are not doing the hard work of going on the ground and figuring out what the story is? Or, are these just rumors? Are pets not being eaten in Springfield? What's your take?
We don't know. How could we ever know? We don't have a media that's honest anymore. I know that Glenn's outfit, The Blaze, they've sent people there. I've seen that a couple other alternative folks have gone to find out, to see if they could get answers. You're not going to get ABC sending anybody. I've seen the articles from the Rolling Stone and the New York Times, and I guess they know better than the people who were there in those commission meetings saying, this is happening. Why aren't you doing something to stop it? They're hearing the stories. And I guess they failed to consider that there's now evidence. 911 calls. Actually, it wasn't 911. It was a non-emergency line. Somebody called on his way to work, and the audio's come out thanks to the Federalist today, where there's a guy on his way to work. He says, I'm seeing these guys, these Haitian migrants, and they're all carrying ducks, and this is in this park, I guess, where this is a problem. And he said, I'm on my way to work. He's trying to give him as much information as possible. Now, does that prove that all of this is happening? Does it prove that there's some, people are eating cats and all this? It doesn't matter. What matters is that, 20,000 people were dumped from a country like Haiti, which is, Dominican Republic, they built a wall to keep people from Haiti out. They're right there with each other, right next door. And we're just importing people in. We don't know who they are. A lot of these folks are unvetted. We have no idea. And on top of it, we put them in a place like Springfield, Ohio, a town of 60,000 people. Major culture clashes are going to happen here. They know exactly what they're doing. And she laughed about it last night. She laughed about the people's pain that they're feeling every time they have to try and pay for groceries or anything else. She laughed about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. The truth is that these people, and I'm talking about Harris, I'm talking about Biden, I'm talking about Alejandro Mayorkas, all these people that are in charge of this current administration, they're doing this, they don't care. And the media is carrying their water, they're covering up for them. They'll never really hold truth to power. They're never really going to get into the weeds and figure out whether this stuff is happening. But the truth is they've done it, they admit they've done it, and they don't care if you know about it. They're going to call you crazy, you racist, sexist, bigot, whatever they want to say, so that you don't shine a light on what's really happening. And what's heartbreaking to see is that these people are speaking at these meetings. This is not a partisan thing. These are people who are standing up and saying, we need help. We need help. There's a black man that's a YouTuber and a TikToker, and he's one of the guys that stood up, and he was, I don't know why I have to take out time from what I'm doing. I'm supposed to be over here having fun doing my YouTube videos and et cetera, and come to you and tell you to do this. You guys are sitting in your cushy chairs. You're making all this money. Why don't you do something? They're pleading for help. He's even going as far as to say, I don't even blame these people that are here. I don't blame the Haitians. That's the thing, is they want to sort of say that this is a compassionate thing that they're doing. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's not compassionate to bring all those people here and dump them and not help them and give them the resources that they need. It's not compassionate for them. And it's definitely not compassionate for the people in that small town of Springfield, Ohio. Here's the thing. If it can happen to Springfield, Ohio, they'll do this to any of us. It's coming to your neighborhood next. That's the point that I think that they're making on the right and particularly the Trump campaign. And, J.D. Vance, he had an interesting moment with the CNN
saw this
anchor last night. And I don't think she was expecting his response. Fascinating. You see, you didn't really care until we started making these cat memes, and the memes are getting your attention now. And I think that it's another to that point, like the old mainstream media, ABC News, is failing, but cat memes. This just says something about who we are now and how I think our media works, is that these memes are breaking through. There's so much power in the ability of just the joke of the memes, because there's truth in jest and it cuts through the noise right now. And I think that freaks them out.
Yeah, and I think the humor is also a really good way for people to deal with the scary stuff that's going on in their country and in their politics right now. Very similar in Canada, where we have communities that are being overrun by immigrants with totally different cultures. And, we've all been watching what's been going on in the UK with the race riots there. And I think kind of watching with a bated breath, wondering, is this going to come to Canada? Is this going to come to the States? And to your earlier point, J.D. Vance had an excellent answer when he was asked about that moment during the debate. And he said, you guys haven't been covering the story story of the immigrants flooding Springfield. And it took cat memes to get your attention to the fact that there are real problems in the community with rising crime, rising cost of living. I've even seen reports of people saying that their insurance has now gone up because of the influx of crime and of car accidents. So definitely a very real story there. The media should be boots on the ground. We don't see a lot of that type of reporting anymore. We've talked a lot about the media fact checking of Trump. I did want to just point to at least one moment, one stunning moment in the debate where they had an opportunity, a very easy opportunity to fact check Kamala Harris. Any random troll on the internet knows that this story is fake by now. Here is Kamala Harris lying about Donald Trump and what he said about neo-Nazis in Charlottesville. Take a look.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
So this has been debunked by Snopes time and time again. I think Joe Biden might have even mentioned it in the last debate because it was so fresh in my memory as something that had been debunked. And of course, the moderators didn't step in and say, no, that's actually been debunked. Like, that to me was the most obvious moment on stage of the moderators are really here. They're on Team Harris. They're on Team Harris.
Absolutely. They won't touch some of the Project 2025. How many times has he come out and said, this is not my project? It's a Heritage Foundation think tank project. My thing is Agenda 47. I mean, how many times does he have to come out and say it? They don't care. If you go to our website right now, not only did they copy and paste everything from the Biden website, I don't know if you heard about that, but it's in the code. They've copied and pasted everything from the Biden campaign website into her website, but at the bottom of every issue the policies that she wants to talk about, there's this Project 2025. Here's what Trump wants to do thing. It's blatant. They don't care. And they're lying over and over again. The media is going right along with it. If they won't correct her on these blatant and obvious lies, yet they want to correct him on what he meant when he said something tongue-in-cheek and with a little sarcasm. It's just laughable by now. And if it weren't so serious and the consequences so dire, I guess we could laugh a little bit more about this. But they are digging their own grave. These folks in these media organizations are losing audience at massive rates and massive numbers. And probably because folks like you, folks like me, and many others, alternatively, are having conversations in ways just like this, and people are gravitating to it because they're getting the truth. People know the truth when they get it. They know when they're being lied to, and they're just tired of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. One other Kamala clip that I wanted to play. Okay, maybe fair enough. This is a matter of opinion. And so understandably, perhaps moderators didn't fact check on this one. This was a moment where she criticized Donald Trump's rallies, and Donald Trump, everyone said he should just ignore that, not take the bait. He did take the bait, and he did respond to this. But I just wanted to show you guys this clip and then juxtapose it to what it actually looks like the truth is. So here's Kamala criticizing Donald Trump at his and for the way that he holds his rallies. Take a look.
We do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
Okay, so two things here. I mean, first she says you will not hear him talk about you. You will not hear him talking about your needs. We've just spent all this time talking about the situation in Springfield. If you remember, the reason that Donald Trump narrowly survived the assassination attempt is because his head was turned because he was looking at a slide on illegal immigration. He was showing the audience the numbers of how high the illegal immigration has been under Joe Biden, and his head was slightly turned on that angle, and for that reason, the bullet grazed his ears instead of hitting him directly in the forehead. So I don't know what Kamala Harris thinks the American public needs, but when I go to rallies and I talk to people in the States, you know, immigration is top of mind for a lot of American voters. And the other thing, and I don't even need to explain this, I think if a picture's worth 1,000 words, then this video must be worth 1,000,000. Kamala Harris saying people leave Donald Trump's rallies early. Take a look at this scene just moments after there was a shooting at one of his rallies. This is powerful. So that was obviously at the failed assassination attempt of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. I shot that footage. As you mentioned, Justin, I was there that day. I had my own experience with that rally. And I just think that it was so powerful that everyone in the crowd stayed. I remember when I heard the initial bullets go off, and I had this moment of thinking, oh, there's going to be a stampede. I expected there to be a stampede of people running for the exits. The opposite happened. Every single person, except maybe the people there with young kids, stood and waited. They waited for Donald Trump to get up. They waited for him to go off stage. And even after that, people continued to linger because they wanted to know what happened. And most pertinently, they wanted to make sure that Donald Trump was okay. And I can tell you that I was staying around to do interviews and people were lingering. Everyone wanted to talk. Everyone wanted to decompress, relate to each other. And the police actually, I later found out at this time that they had found bombs. They had found bombs from the gunman. And as soon as they found that, they said, we need to evacuate. We need to get everyone off the grounds. And they were screaming at us to leave, and nobody wanted to leave. Everyone wanted to stay and talk to each other and just wait for some sort of information on Donald Trump. So to me, that was just such a stunning moment where she said, people can't even be bothered to stand. It was so hot that day. I can tell you people passed out. And even after there was a shooting at the event, people still stayed because they wanted to make sure that Trump was okay. So to me, that was a stunning moment. I don't know if that got as much attention as some of the other really blatant lies that Kamala said. But to me, that was just so stunning and wrong that she would make those comments, especially given what you said, that the moderators did in fact cut Trump off when he was talking about being shot in the ear.
I think they did it because they tried to bait him. They believe they could get into his head by taunting him about crowd size, was something that's so blatant and so ridiculous. They're paying people to come. They have to pay and have free concerts to get people to show up to her rallies, and they leave early. There's video of this. We've seen this happening. So it's so absurd. It's so ridiculous that I think that's the only reason they did it. By the way, he was frustrated, but I think he was more frustrated with the moderators than he was anything else last night. And I don't think any of these things worked in their favor to get into his head. I think it just became another one of these, just if you're watching that and you're at home and you're having a hard time putting food on the table or gas in the tank, paying for childcare, maybe you or your family been a victim of some sort of crime, this is not resonating with you. This is petty. This is ridiculous. And quite frankly, you're probably ticked off while you're watching it.
Yeah. Justin, just my last question for you. Are they going to agree to another debate, or is this all we're going to get?
I thought last night for sure she got the performance she wanted, that there wouldn't be another debate, but they've already asked for it. And then he said, well, maybe I will do one. I think they'll be back and forth over whether they do it at Fox or not. But then this morning, he said on Fox and Friends that he only wants, Hannity and Laura Ingraham to do it. He doesn't want Martha or Brett. And I don't know. I mean, the guy can go into the lion's den time and time again, and he comes out like nearly unscathed. I think time is of the essence if they want to do it. I thought for a fact they were going to try and put him in jail, but they've delayed the sentencing. And I think all bets are off. Anything's possible. They may get another debate. They may not. One of the debate locations that's been floated was Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm at, one of the locations. So I will let you know. I'll keep you posted. And if they do it here, I'll try to be in attendance.
Well, that would be great, and we can have you on afterwards and break down the whole thing. Justin, thank you so much for your time and for your insight today. I know my largely Canadian audience will really appreciate that. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Rachel and the Republic. That's all we have time for today. Hope you enjoyed this episode of our debate coverage. I'll be back next week, Wednesday, with more American election content for you as we cover the last and final weeks of the campaign. I hope that you guys have a great week. God bless.